Basically, we're mimicking like Marcelo Garcia. Like so much stuff that I do in jiu-jitsu, I look at it and I'm like, man, are we all just copying Marcelo at the end of the day?
What's the most efficient path to victory against this particular opponent?
He's dropping off for the choke here. We could see the finish. It's looking tight. Tight as Alpra.
Hey guys, welcome to the Everyday Jiu-Jitsu Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kwan, and the Everyday Jiu-Jitsu Podcast is everything you need to know about jiu-jitsu. Today I want to discuss the biggest tips, I have 11 of them, the biggest tips to help you optimize your no-gi game. Before we get into that, please like, share, subscribe. Check out links in the bottom if you want to support the show. All of your support and participation is appreciated. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Before we get into optimizing your no-gi, a couple things I want to discuss. First of all, yesterday I drove down to Spokane, Washington, which was like a 6.5 hour drive. Beautiful drive. I love Washington State, very similar to BC, to get stem cells. And it's the first time I've ever done a therapy like this. I had Kevin from New Hope Regeneration on the podcast a couple weeks ago, and I believe it's episode 99. And yeah, we linked up and I said, okay, well, I'm going to come down and see you, get this treatment and then go back. They call it a therapy. Apparently legally, they're not allowed to call it a treatment. There is a lot of controversy and red tape around stem cell therapy, but I figured, the cost was worth the treatment, or at least worth trying, because I am getting older and I have some injuries that I would like to improve that aren't going to improve with conventional Western medicine methods. And so I got some stem cells. Within the next 3 months or so, that's, I think, when the stem cells have kind of reached their maximum benefit efficacy. I will be doing, I don't know if I'll do a full episode on it, but I definitely will be discussing my results. And I'm optimistic, to say the least, because I've heard so many people, reputable people, talk about how stem cells have really helped them. And so this is day 2. I haven't noticed anything yet, but I've told within like a week, sometimes you can perceive benefits. And the thing about stem cells, from what I understand, is that you cannot choose where your stem cells are going to heal you. Like if I put the stem cells in my shoulder, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to heal my shoulder, although some companies will tell you this and they will charge you extra for additional injection sites. I basically just got the stem cell in an IV in my arm, which is pretty pain-free. And the whole procedure took all of 10-15 minutes. I was in and out within 10 minutes. So 6.5 hour drive each way, 10-minute treatment. I think next time what I'm going to be doing is I'll be flying down, just because that's a lot of driving. And I thought that it would be worth the money saved. But to be honest, in the end, it really wasn't. At least on an airplane, you can nap, you can do other things. When you're driving, you have to be 100% focused on driving. And I would definitely, I'm definitely excited about the benefits of the stem cells and sharing it with you guys. I'm sort of the guinea pig. I know this is kind of a new treatment that people can get, and I'm excited, to say the least. Anything nowadays, I'm in my later 30s, anything that can help me with my health, increase performance, or increase healing benefits in any way. Like I'm open to those ideas now. I'm creeping up on middle age here. So I like to train, I like to compete, and I want to definitely make sure that my body is basically an investment, and the prices are pretty reasonable for these stem cells. They have 2 therapies. One of them is $3,500 American. The other one is $6,500 American. Like I said, you guys message me, I'll get you $500 off of any of those treatments. Okay. Also, did you guys check out BJJ Stars 15? I know that's kind of old news now. I wanted to talk about it last week on the show, but I had John Calistine on the show, and I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was a really great episode, in my opinion. And but I did want to talk about BJJ Stars just briefly. There were a couple of main takeaways I thought that were really incredible. First of all, Baby Shark getting absolutely smoked. What's the guy's name? Mayin or something? Some Brazilian guy. I've actually never heard of him before. I'm kind of embarrassed by that, but he smoked Baby Shark. Like, I think he passed him like 3 times, beat him something by like 9 points or something. I'm sorry, I don't have all the stats in front of me. This is purely off of memory. But man, like I think he Toriando passed him like 3 times. And to do that to a guy like Baby Shark, I was super impressed. So definitely be brushing up on my Toriandos. Also, of course, everyone's talking about a couple of robberies that happened. Some people say, a lot of people are saying that Mika Galval lost to Elijah Dorsey. Although I have people who are on the contrary, they're saying, well, Mika was initiating more. But, a lot of people said that Elijah actually should have won that. And then Elijah follows it up last week with a really awesome match against Tynan Dalper in the Gi at Europeans. Man, Elijah Dorsey is really good. And just in terms of the initiations rule, if you don't know, ADCC has rules where whoever is, they don't have advantages, but whoever is pushing the action, every time somebody initiates an attack, they get like an invisible advantage, essentially an initiation. But the way that they have it structured is like, if I initiate a shot on my partner and then they sprawl, they put me in a guillotine, we scramble a bunch, this guillotine is on, like maybe they're using the guillotine to go behind me and it's this big long sequence and they're really benefiting from sprawling and putting me in this headlock. And then we disengage. Because I shot, I get the invisible initiation. But I'm not so sure that that is the fairest way to do things. Yes, I understand the reason for it, and I can appreciate that that this ADCC rule set, forces initiations. I like that. But on the other hand, it's like, just because I initiate, if you get the better of the exchange, I don't think that it should just be like the person who initiated should get all the reward. I think there should be also a reward for scrimmaging and for being able to like make something productive happen out of that, even if you weren't the person to initiate. So I have mixed feelings on that rule. I don't think it should just be cut and dry. Whoever initiates, gets the invisible advantage. I think basically actions on both athletes during the sequence need to be assessed. And I think both should be rewarded, honestly, if there's a good follow-up, a good defense to the initiation. Another match that I thought was a bit of a robbery. It's my buddy Oliver Taza beat Jonatas Gracie in a decision. I think even he was surprised. You could tell by his reaction. And, I love Taza, but in my opinion, I think Jonatas dominated that match. Even with initiations, with controls. Jonatas not necessarily known for submitting a lot of his opponents, but definitely known for just dominating his matches, like controlling positionally. The guy's so big and strong and so good. I was shocked by that decision. I love Oliver and I always want him to win because he's Canadian and I've had him on the show. I've talked to him on BJJ Mental Models. I've had him in my gym before doing seminars and he's a really great competitor and a great coach. But man, I just didn't think that was, I was surprised by that decision anyways. But that is one of the best events. That's all I'll talk about for BJJ Stars 15. There's a lot more to look at in that event. And that event was one of the best jiu-jitsu events that I've seen in a long time. I think it took place in Rio de Janeiro and it had gi and no gi matches. It was awesome. Definitely, rewatch that event. I think I might even rewatch it again because there were so many things that I was studying from watching the action. And it's funny how you can benefit so much from watching high level competition. I know myself, I love watching instructionals. I know there's a lot of people out there who do love instructionals, a lot of people who can't watch instructionals because, their ADD or whatever won't let them. But there's something about watching live jiu-jitsu at the highest level that just, there's so many takeaways that you can get. And you really got to go back and rewatch it to fully absorb everything. So I'll probably be rewatching that event. So I have 11 points here for optimizing your no-gi. And I would say that my no-gi game is stronger than my gi game. You guys know this. And I always hear the same criticisms from people when they hop from gi to no-gi, right? Generally, they say things like, no-gi is a quicker game. It's a younger man's game. I'm too old. I'm too slow. It's too slippery. I don't know how to control my partner. I need my grips, right? So I just want to talk about these are things that I've sort of thought about that I think can really help somebody who is looking to transition to no-gi or to maybe you're a gi player and you really want to immerse yourself in no-gi and sort of separate the two arts. And I think that's what's really important as an overall theme is separate the two arts, because if you are playing your no-gi game as if you're doing gi, but your partner doesn't have a gi. I'm not going to say that can't work, but I'm also going to say that's probably like an older technology. Like it's not necessarily, some things will transfer over, and some things do work well from gi to no gi, but I just think that it's kind of like if I wanted to do a judo tournament and I'm trying to go into a judo tournament with jiu-jitsu lens, you're going to get smashed because the rules will, permit your opponent to do things to you that you're not really, you're not prepared for. You can't go into a judo match as a jiu-jitsu player looking to just do jiu-jitsu, right? And at the end of the day, you're not really even doing judo if that's what you're doing. You really have to separate the two sports and play within those rule sets, because that's really what dictates the difference. Is a lot of the time the rule sets, and also in this case, like the friction of the gi really changes a lot of things. So the tips that I've come up with in this episode are going to be things that, I've tried to not make them tips that are just overall tips for all jiu-jitsu, but are more exclusive to no-gi. And some of the things will work for both, but I believe these are the biggest things that could, take you from like a decent no-gi guy to like a really good no-gi guy. Okay. So number 11, train with people who prioritize in no-gi. So when you train with people whose main focus is no-gi, you're going to see the sport through a different lens altogether. They're going to do different things. They're going to offer, they're going to do different reactions. Like I don't know. I used to think when I was maybe in the colored belts that training in the gi improves no-gi. This is like the old cliche, and some people still believe this to this very day. To be fully honest, I don't know that I do believe that, because they're two different sports completely. The controls are completely different. The types of guards that are more effective are completely different. Generally in the gi, I think outside guards are more effective, like De La Riva, whereas in no gi, I think inside guards like Ashigarami are generally more of a focus. Your engagement battles will be completely different because there's no gripping of cloth. You're going to be focusing more on like hand fighting and things like that. Leg entanglements, of course. It's interesting though, because I had Max Hansen on the podcast a couple weeks ago. Guys, definitely check out that episode. And he's talking about how he believes that gi grapplers bring like a different type of guard retention to their no-gi game, and that 100% helps their no-gi game. And I can see what he means. Like for those who really play a lot of De La Riva, their guard retention will be better than those who kind of ignore that position. A lot of people in no-gi don't play De La Riva because they seek the inside position constantly, right? Like if you watch like Gordon Ryan, he's constantly just getting 2 feet to the inside rather than having a leg to the outside. But Max was saying, on the contrary to, the Gordon Ryan inside position model, he was saying people who train in the gi with play De La Riva and reverse De La Riva outside guards, they tend to be harder to pass, in his opinion. And I can see there being some kind of truth to this. I can see those guard retention and guard recovery movements translating over to no-gi. So but personally for me, I don't think that using a gi will help you get better at no-gi. It doesn't really make sense to me. It's almost like saying being a good ball hockey player means you'll be a good ice hockey player. That it's two different sports. The mechanics of the sports completely change. I'm not an expert on ball hockey, but I've played a couple games and it sucks. It is incredibly difficult. Could your cardio improve because you're constantly running in ball hockey? And could that translate over to ice hockey? Maybe, but I don't think one makes you better at the other necessarily. I think no-gi is like its own system. It's its own sport, and it should be looked at as different from gi jiu-jitsu. And when you train with people who are focusing primarily in no-gi, you're going to see kind of how they play these little micro battles differently. Obviously, leg entanglement's much more popular and more accepted in no-gi. And so if you train with people who prioritize no-gi, you're probably going to be getting heel hooked. You're going to be getting exposed to these different leg locks and headlocks and things that we can get in a no-gi scenario. And I would say just identify, when you're with these people, identify the main differences of how people play with the gi and without the gi. That will definitely help you see the differences between the two sports. Okay, tip number 10, learn how to distribute your body weight on on your partner. And really what we're talking about when we're distributing our body weight is like wedging our partner in place, right? How are we going to do that? Getting to the inside position, which we'll talk about in a minute, that is actually going to afford you the ability to wedge your partner in place. There are situations like sprawl camping where you might be on top and you don't really have a lot of inside position. Like maybe you're in a split squat, so your leg's inside theirs, but you don't have underhooks or anything. You're kind of just holding your partner down and camping on them. And you really need to be a master of weight distribution to do this, because even the slightest change in the direction of how you're applying your force or the slightest change in your posture can lead you to getting off balanced. Even by just engaging your hips or your back a certain way can stifle your partner's ability to create kazushi and off balance you. And I think that being able to hold your partner down for long periods of time is one of like the great skills in jiu-jitsu that takes a lot of practice, especially when you don't have the gi. In the gi, I don't need inside position a lot of the time. I can just like grab your clothes and pin you literally to the floor. And if I'm bigger than you, it's going to be even easier. But in no-gi, that doesn't really work. Like all the big guys that I train with in a no-gi scenario, the guys that can kind of fuck me up in the gi, they don't have the same ability to hold me in no-gi. I can generally off balance. I can prevent them from controlling me. And as long as they don't lock their hands around me, it's quite difficult for them to actually control me and hold me down. But the second I put on a gi, now they can just like pin different parts of my body. So, the main things, the main tips that I recommend for people to get really, really good at distributing their body weight is, first of all, get chest over chest. If you can get chest over chest, this is a great tip that I stole from Jonathan Thomas. He talks about how if you get chest over chest on someone, they try and push you away. They're not pushing you away. They're pushing their own self down. They're pushing themselves into the ground by trying to push you away because you're directly over top of them. And one of my favorite things to do in no-gi is just get chest over chest. Even if I'm not chest to chest connected, I'm chest over chest and just having somebody frame on me. This is like a really great thing to do. Even though you're not scoring yet, you are absolutely exhausting your partner, and you're essentially like camping positions involve you being able to lean over your partner for long periods of time and just hold them in place. Other things we're looking to do when we're doing this is trying to flatten our partner. So if our partner is on their side, say like a knee shield or something to that effect, they're going to be more effective at off balancing you. They're going to be more effective at making space, and their frames will be stronger. But the second you start pinning someone's hips to the mat, their knee shield starts going away. The second you start pinning their far shoulder to the mat, the harder it is for them to absorb your pressure. And so pinning the hips and the shoulders, especially when we're like half guard passing, I think that that's one of the best tips that you can do in terms of, flattening your partner out with your body weight. You can use like CLA or eco training to gamify these things, like just holding somebody in a camping position, just trying to maintain, to gain and to maintain camping positions rather than just passing. Like sometimes one of the affordances will say, for one of the games that I'll do based around camping, is I just want the top player to force the bottom player to frame on them as much as they can. And then you can add other constraints like, the bottom player is only allowed to frame. Okay, now the next round, we're going to afford the bottom player to enter leg entanglements, and the top player is trying to camp on their partner without getting leg entangled. Things of this flavor, right? So you can base these games around particular skills that you're trying to cultivate and certain problems that you're trying to solve. It's one of the best ways to train, especially when we're talking about weight distribution. If we just free roll from the split squat and I'm trying to pass and you're trying to, sweep or whatever, how much time are we actually going to spend camping, right? Like I'm going to try to get to my camping position, but if the guard player is much better than me, I might not even get to the camping position once. But if we just target that camping position, we base constraints around it, that's when you can get a lot of good work quick in terms of how are we going to feel comfortable applying our weight in these positions. And the last thing is just gaining inside position, which is the next tip number 9, gaining the inside position. Guys, watch a Gordon Ryan DVD. Literally every Gordon Ryan DVD, there's a section where he talks about the inside position. And the reason is because it basically applies to everything in no-gi. If you can dominate the inside position, it's very, very difficult for your partner to actually control you, to pin you, to submit you. Very difficult for them to do that if they cannot dominate the inside position. What does that mean? Basically, from different perspectives, inside position just means like getting inside your partner's frames and turning their frames into levers, right? So if I'm trying to pass, my partner's got like frames in the way from, let's say, a knee shield position. Those frames are stopping me from getting chest to chest. They're stopping me from flattening my partner and holding my partner and getting chest to chest. And like, we need to get chest to chest eventually, because if we don't, it's going to be difficult to isolate limbs and neck, right? So how are we going to do that? We got to get chest to chest. So the only way for me to do that is to get inside my partner's frames. So simple enough. If my partner's pushing me away, I need to get inside that frame. And now I can get chest to chest and pin them down. Now I've isolated that frame and turned it into a lever that I can use to either control my partner or look to go into submissions. And this is where you see a lot of gi guys who are used to controlling people's clothes around the outside. It's not like true control, right? It's not like I'm controlling a piece of your body. I'm controlling something that's attached to your body by proxy. And so I don't need to get like underhooks necessarily. I could like control your pant leg and your collar, and that could be enough to just hold you down and get close and wear you down. So the controls are completely different. And this is why you hear gi guys say, no gi is so slippery. I have issues with, I need my grips, bro, is kind of the old adage for gi players. And I need to slow things down with my grips. But it's like, well, do you actually know how to control somebody? Like, what if we weren't wearing clothes? The answer is you have to get inside position. And when you do that, that's when you can start to get chest to chest, and things don't seem so slippery anymore when you identify the actual handles that we're trying to use in no-gi, like underhooks, scoop grips on the legs, bicep ties, et cetera, et cetera. Guys, watch a Gordon Ryan DVD. That's all I can say. And then seeking the inside position means from the bottom position, playing a lot of ashigurami, butterfly guard, X guard. These are like the main double inside position guards for leg entanglements. I think they're some of the most effective sweeps and positions we can use in the gi and without the gi. But these positions will definitely lead you into a lot of leg attacks, which is also very, very important. So basically, we're mimicking like Marcelo Garcia. Like so much stuff that I do in jiu-jitsu, I look at it and I'm like, man, are we all just copying Marcelo at the end of the day? Like that. One of the tips I was going to put on was be like Marcelo, because the guy he was so inspirational for all of us in terms of modern no-gi grappling. He is like one of the biggest godfathers for sure. I was trying to think like, okay, what is his most dominant system? Marcelo. Obviously he's known for strangling people from the back. And then I was like, yeah, but he's also really, really good at like arm drags. He's good at wrestling up on singles. He's good at X guard. Like X guard is like what he was known for. Single X and X guard. He has a fantastic crucifix game. He's good everywhere. And like a lot of the stuff that we see Danaher and Gordon, what makes them great as coaches and athletes is taken from Marcelo and what he did, in the early 2000s. Like Marcelo is an inspiration to us all. So just be like Marcelo. That should be one of the tips. Okay. Number 8, develop a good kipping escape. I can't tell you how much kipping escapes have changed my pin escape game, especially from mount, but also from like half guard control. It shocks me as a coach to see how many people, at least here locally in Vancouver, don't know the kipping escape. Like high level guys don't know the kipping escape. And I was one of those guys, up until a couple of years ago. And it was one of those moves. This is what Danaher also says about Gary Tonin. When he first learned the kipping escape, he struggled with it for months. And then one day it clicked. And that's kind of how it was for me too. I was struggling with it, didn't understand how to do it. And I could do a whole episode on the kipping escape because I've taught it to so many people now. And I really feel like I have a good understanding of the techniques. And kipping escape does work in the gi, but it's difficult because there's a lot more friction. So you don't see it as much. But just that movement of going into the kipping escape will totally diversify how you escape pins. If you think about the kipping escape, how are you going to pin someone who is completely concave? It's going to be very difficult to flatten somebody out who's completely concave. And then once, if you've ever had somebody do a kipping escape to you, it's a horrible feeling, because in 1 second you're in like a really good position, and then the next second you feel yourself starting to disconnect from your partner, and now it's like you're falling into quicksand, because once that disconnection begins, a person with a good kipping escape is usually able to take that kipping escape into completion. And then a lot of the time, if you're just trying to hold the position and you freeze up, a lot of the time they're going to enter into your legs and they're going to start to attack you from there. So not only is it a great way to escape, it's a great way to go into immediate counterattacks for the defender. So I believe that this is a critical movement. It's a critical escape for all jiu-jitsu players, kids included. It's critical for pin escapes and for guard recoveries. It's one of the most misunderstood movements in jiu-jitsu. And if you don't know how to kip, you should definitely just like make it a side quest over the next couple months to start to develop a good kipping escape. I'm telling you, it will 100% improve your ability to do so many things in no-gi, especially counterattacking and leg locking. It should be, I believe the kipping escape should be considered like, it should be up there with the fundamental movements in jiu-jitsu. Like when we take a day one beginner and you show them the basic core movements for escaping, what do you show them? You show them bridging, shrimping, and to some degree inverting, right? Like those are like the main ones, right? And then there's obviously other movements, but like those are like the main ones we teach. We don't teach kipping escapes to beginners, but it is absolutely up there with some of the best recovery movements. And one thing I love about the kipping escape is you don't need to be really in base to do it. Like I don't need to put my feet on the floor and shrimp out. You do a shrimp or a bridge, try doing without your feet on the floor. It's impossible. But if you do a kipping escape, you don't need to plant your feet on the floor. You can just do it by rounding up into a ball and just like doing your shaking movement, right? And I one of the biggest tips I tell people who struggle with kipping escapes, if your knees are smacking against your partner's butt, you're not going to be able to do a kipping escape. Your knees should be constantly just like pushing your partner's butt towards your shoulders. There should never be like a disconnection with your knees. It should always be connected as you're pulling your knees into your partner's tailbone. And instead of thinking about big kips, just vibrate. Just do like tiny little kips, and that will be enough often to create some disconnection. If you guys want to see a kipping escape episode, let me know. I would love to talk to people about that, because it's changed my game really. And if you watch like Gordon when he's rolling in these instructionals, he's constantly using kipping escapes, and they're very, very effective. It should be one of the most fundamental escape movements in BJJ. And definitely develop a good kipping escape. Tip number 7, get good at front headlocks. Front headlocks are they're one of my favorite systems in jiu-jitsu, one of the best systems for self-defense, one of the most prominent positions in no-gi, especially when we start applying wrestling, right? Front headlocks are there for somebody who sucks at wrestling, who is looking for some place to build their wrestling skills. I always say, get to front headlock, develop a front headlock. It's almost like an anti-wrestling position. You can shut down a lot of good wrestlers with threats of front headlocks. That's kind of where I started with it. And it is, if you look at like Rafa Mendes, when he talks about anaconda strangles and his applications of front headlocks when he was still a competitor competing in no-gi, his plan wasn't to wrestle. It was to sort of goad his opponent into shooting and then applying counter front headlocks. And so this is, it's a great system. It's an anti-wrestling system, and it can be used for offense. It's a great way for grapplers to wrestle without shooting. And every time you shoot, there's more of a chance of, it's like high risk, right? Like you're down and you present your opponent an opportunity to sprawl over your back and your head and put you in a front headlock. But when you just spam front headlocks and collar ties and snap downs, like there's not a lot of risk to that, right? And if you get to your partner's head, there's so many good things we can do. We can go for submissions from there. We can threaten go behinds and go to the back. It really is one of the most versatile and effective positions in no-gi grappling. And obviously, just for fighting, it's high reward, it's low risk. Develop a really good collar tie game. Like I've been watching Gordon Ryan's I've been watching Gordon Ryan's front headlock instructional, or pardon me, upper body takedowns instructional. And he just constantly just spams collar ties. That's all he does. And that's what I've been doing lately, is just spamming collar ties, because I'm not a big fan of like shooting in on my knees all the time as well. I try to do it, but in a competitive match, you don't necessarily want to give your opponent those opportunities to sprawl on you. But if you just spam like the dilemma of picking a single leg and collar tying, and you just keep doing that over and over again, you're going to frustrate a lot of good wrestlers. And you don't have to be a great wrestler to do that. So I really think that you should develop a good collar tie system as well if you're going to get good at front headlocks, because obviously leads to snap downs. But get good at front headlocks. Try to get good at all of the different front headlocks. Like, I know some people specialize as arm and guillotine front headlockers, or no arm guillotine, or I'm only a Darce guy, or I'm only a Katagatami guy. Like, you're going to have maximum effect when you understand all of those moves and when you can chain them all together, because that's when you'll see how well they chain together, and how you can use that to basically just dominate your opponent from the front headlock. So tip number 7, get good at front headlocks. Tip number 6, train within the ADCC rule set. I think this is really important. The sport of IBJJF and ADCC are completely different. You shouldn't go into a judo match as a jiu-jitsu guy thinking I'm going to do jiu-jitsu. You shouldn't go into an ADCC match with an IBJJF mindset, and vice versa. They're completely different rule sets, and training under ADCC rule set will make you a different grappler in a good way. I believe it diversifies people's games. The game ADCC is interesting because midway through the match, the rules change. And then there's an overtime period as well. So there's a lot of different like diversity in terms of how a match plays out in ADCC. I believe that it kind of like training under that rule set kind of like diversifies the necessary skills that an athlete needs to succeed in that rule set. So I think that that's always going to be a pathway to growth. It's obviously a more aggressive rule set than IBJJF. IBJJF almost rewards stalling. If you get up an advantage and you want to like stall and give the illusion you're fighting, but just stall to a victory, like that's how guys win world titles in the IBJJF a lot of the time. Whereas in ADCC, you have to come forward. And also in ADCC, because there's no advantages and there's a no points period, you can afford yourself the ability to make a lot more blunders, especially mid-match. You can only score for like half the match potentially. So it's a small window to score in. So if you make a fuck up in the first part of the match, like you can recover from that. And IBJJF at a high level, if you get your guard passed, it's like there's no recovering really. Like you're probably going to lose that match. The rule set of ADCC is very wrestling heavy, and myself included, a lot of people would cut their chops playing an IBJJF game where they'd literally just pull guard every time. And I'm guilty of that. Why wouldn't I? It works. It's within the rule set. It's low risk. I'm confident on my guard. There's less chance of an injury. There's less chance of getting caught 2 points down. Like, why wouldn't I just pull guard every time? But in ADCC, that you will be literally like forced to wrestle, or you will be forced to game the rules in a way that still makes you exposed to wrestling. So I just think it just forces you to be more of a beast. It forces you to look at grappling as more of a fight, right? Rather than just like a game. IBJJF, I look at it as kind of like a game of points, right? ADCC is a game of points, it's true, but it's like we're submission fighting, and expect the collar ties to be heavy, and other things like flying off the mats and continue fighting. Like it's more of like a fight, and I can appreciate that. And it's way more, in my opinion, it's way more fun to watch. And the environments at the ADCC opens, which are now so prevalent, right? Like a couple of years ago, there was no ADCC opens. Now they're everywhere. The environments and the atmospheres at these tournaments, in my opinion, infinitely more fun and more enjoyable than IBJJF. And I think a lot of the listeners would appreciate it. I've done an episode where I contrast ADCC and IBJJF. You should definitely check that out if it interests you. An ADCC rule set's also going to force you to prioritize not only wrestling, but like front headlocks and turtle positions, because people will be turtling a lot more in an ADCC rule set to negate scoring. And so again, this just leads to more growth in these positions and forcing the athletes to really develop those situations. I think ADCC rules are fascinating. I think it's like a true expression of like a fight in submission grappling, right? Whereas IBJJF is like, yeah, I guess it's a fight. Like two guys are like they're two battles of wills in a grappling match, but like there's a lot more trying to break the rules by like, not break the rules, but like game the rules, game the system by just like, advantage and chill type shit. Whereas in ADCC, if you do that, a lot of the time, you're not going to get the judge's decision by being passive in ADCC. So train within the ADCC rule set for sure. Especially if you're not a wrestler, force yourself to do it. Tip number 5, understand that sweeps are not sweeps. They are always wrestle-ups. And this is super important to understand. This is a philosophy that I stole from John Danner. I remember when I was in the colored belts and when I was training, it's like, we're going to learn this sweep. We're going to learn how to do this sweep. And it's like, then you go and try and do it live. And like, this motherfucker on top doesn't want to get swept. And it could be difficult to sweep somebody who does not want to get swept. Right. And even if you do knock them down, they don't want to be held down. Like, if you've ever grappled with like a good MMA guy, it's like, you can take them down sometimes, but good luck holding them down. A lot of the time what these guys do is they just turtle and stand up, and they really don't care if you take their back. They're just going to like slide you off of them. Like, it's fascinating because it's grappling through a completely different lens, but, yeah, good luck holding someone down that doesn't want to be held down. And you can build games around that. I've stolen games from the Corbet brothers where they talk about like top player is just trying to hold the bottom player down. Bottom player's trying to get up, like play within that rule set, right? And then add different affordances. Let the top player start getting chest to chest. Let the bottom player start entering leg entanglements and using it to stand up. Bottom player needs to stand up with some kind of a connection or not. That's why CLA is really so good. Like, you can build these games to do whatever you want, and solve whatever kind of problems you're having in training. And I think that it's a great way to train, things like this. Somebody doesn't want to get held down. They're just trying to stand up. Okay, top player, hold them down. There's 2 phases to every sweep. There's some kind of an off balance that makes it an asymmetrical fight. If I can put your hands on the mat and then I try to sweep you, I'm going to have a lot higher chance of completing the task than if I just try and sweep you when you're in full base, right? And so the first phase to every sweep is to off balance your partner, break them down to a hip, break them down to their hands, their elbows, their knees, whatever. And then the second phase is get the fuck up, right? If you can wrestle up and have that second gear where you're going to level change, you're going to get above your partner and hold them down. That is how I look at sweeps now. In gi as well. There's the first phase where we off balance. There's a second phase where we finish the sweep. So if you're learning sweeps in like one continuous movement, not to say that won't happen. It definitely happens more in the gi because there's grips that prevent my partner from getting into base and standing back up. But understand that in, especially in no-gi situation, you're always going to need to like wrestle and scrimmage for the top position. And don't expect it to be easy because good guys hate being held down, especially if they come from a fighting background, MMA background. So that will definitely help you. Just understand there's always 2 phases of every sweep. Okay, tip number 4, look to lock your hands around your opponent whenever possible. This is not necessarily a situation of inside position. Obviously, it helps if you have underhooks or body locks and you lock your hands, but there are times when you can lock your hands around the outside, whether it's a single leg or even certain body locks allow you to have outside position on your partner with locked hands. Or I'm camping on my partner and they're framing on me. They have the inside, but I've managed to lock my hands around them. So therefore I am stuck to them. Look at a guy like Nicky Rod. His whole game is based around locking his hands around his opponent and passing. And even when he does that, he's probably going to pass, we saw him do this to Pena, and honestly, I would even bet that if he could lock his hands around Gordon, he could give him a run for his money and potentially pass him. But you see, the last time they fought on, what was it, Fight Pass? When, there's a whole stupid thing about how Gordon tapped at the end when time ran out. It was so stupid. And Gordon got his foot broken, all that stuff. Gordon was playing a supine guard because he knew that if he plays a seated guard, he's going to get body locked. And that was like Nicky's best path to victory. And so you see he refused to play a seated guard against him, which is very tactically smart. Seated guard exposes you to body locks, right? So locking your hands around your partner, it just creates such a strong connection in a slippery environment like nogi, but we can always rely on locked hands. That's especially with like body lock takedowns, single legs, body lock passing. It just gives us like such a strong control over our partner to lock our hands around them. And these are grips that are, very different from how we would control someone in nogi or in gi, pardon me. In gi, I'm probably just going to grab your gi, grab your pants and just like pin you. But in nogi, I got to lock my hands around you. And that will avoid a lot of the slippage issues that you might have in a nogi situation. Okay, tip number 3. I think this is just a good tip for all jiu-jitsu, but especially in nogi. Guys, get leg locked a lot. Like, make a lot of mistakes and get leg locked as many times as you can. Now, you might listen to that and be like, well, that's stupid. Like, why the fuck would I want to get leg locked as many times as I can? Aren't we trying to get good? Yeah. I mean, I don't want you to go in there and give your partner your leg and tap out 100 times. That's stupid. But like, as you're playing with your partner, don't be afraid to put yourself in entanglements so that you can work your way out. And then you can start to develop games around like, okay, now I'm on top and my whole goal is to pin you without getting entangled, right? And we start to avoid entanglements once we become comfortable in them so that we can prevent our partner from even getting to them. But leg locks are crucial in modern BJJ now, gi and no-gi, but especially no-gi, with the advancement of heel hooks and all of that. Everyone's doing heel hooks now. Everyone's doing woj locks. Everyone's doing straight ankle locks. You have to have these moves in your game. It's normal to get submitted. So when you're going against somebody who's really good at leg locks or really good at nogi, put yourself in those positions, sit in the pocket and exchange. Try to think about the different phases of these attacks. Like phase number 1, I don't even want my partner to get into my legs. So we train around the idea of not letting our partner get into our legs. Phase number 2, we are in the leg entanglement, but we're just trying to base out. We could try to pass, or we could, a lot of time I love playing games with the top players in the leg entanglement and they're just trying to not get leg locked and not fall over. I love attack versus, I guess you could call it kind of like submission versus stalling is a great constraint for leg lock games. Like I put the student in outside ashi and I'm like, okay, you're trying to submit the other person. The other person who's defending is just trying to stay there and not get submitted. Like, so think of how much good work we're doing over the course of a 5-minute round where you're not allowed to escape the leg entanglement. You're not allowed to pass. You just have to sit there and not get submitted. Like you're going to get very good in that sort of mid-range, that mid-phase of leg entanglements. And then obviously we got to get good at deep leg entanglements. Put yourself in a heel hook and try to work your way out. Put yourself in an ankle lock, try and work your way out. Sit in the pocket, try to work your way out. This, you can get very good at leg locks very fast if you have this type of training mentality. The problem is a lot of people are terrified of leg locks, even still to this day, and they don't want to go into an entanglement. And if they do go into entanglement, they freak out. This is not the right mindset. The right mindset is to go in knowing you're going to get submitted and just try to make mistakes. Like eventually, obviously, we don't want to make mistakes. But I say that maybe in a hyperbolic kind of way, saying like, it's good to get caught in a heel hook and then work your way out. It's good to sit in a leg entanglement, even though in a real match, we don't want to be in a leg entanglement. It's good to sit in there and just work your way out. And if you get caught, that's actually a good thing, because the more you get caught, the more you can observe like, oh, that didn't work. So what am I going to do differently next time? The problems start to arise when you get submitted. And so once those problems arise, now we can start to identify paths to solutions, right? And so I always recommend like, make as many mistakes as you can, don't be a goof, don't be an idiot, try to do good jujitsu, but like look at mistakes as a good thing. Look at it as growth and work within the different phases of the defense of these leg locks and play with all leg locks, like play with heel hooks, play with reaps. A lot of gi people still to this day don't even touch reaping or heel hooks. They're terrified of them. And they like to go to their master's divisions and they like to hide in there because there's no reaps or heel hooks. Guys, play within those rules, like become comfortable with those uncomfortable situations. That's where the true growth can happen. Right. And of course, when you're getting leg locked, a big tip on just being good with leg locks is understand when you should attack and when you should defend, because I think that's one of the biggest reasons people get submitted in leg locks is they don't understand when they should be attacking and when they should be defending. For example, like you get caught in mutual ashi where each of you has a leg sticking out and you get so excited because your partner's leg's right there and you start, going belly down on an ankle lock, and before you know it, you're getting your leg reaped and heel hooked. And a shootout where it's an ankle lock versus a heel hook's usually going to win. And so I would say avoid shootouts because, shootouts are volatile and can be dangerous and sometimes can be a battle of the egos as well. And it's just not the type of fight that we want to fight. We want an asymmetrical fight. We don't want to go in there and give our opponent a chance to attack us. We want to make sure that we have all the advantages, right? That we're the ones who are leading the offense. And if we do happen to lead the offense, and our opponent manages to get some kind of attack on us, or they're looking for a counter, we can't just have tunnel vision and think like, oh, I'm just going to keep going with my attack, because that's how you get countered. Instead, we're aware as we're attacking of our partner's ability to counter and to defend, and we're going to be aware and adjust our offense based on their counters, right? It's really not rocket surgery, guys. All right. Tip number 2, we're getting close to the end here. Hand fight as much as possible from all positions. Hand fighting is it's an excellent way to warm up. I think it's one of the best warm-ups, honestly. Hand fighting from standing position, hand fighting from standing versus guard position. Hand fighting is easily one of the most overlooked skills in grappling, period. And it literally applies to everything. It's kind of crazy. Like even hand fighting from the back position. If I'm behind you and my hands are controlling your hands, I'm winning. If your hands are controlling my hands, you're winning. You're probably going to escape if you're doing that. So, not only is it great for warming up and it applies in like literally every scenario, but it's a great way to train when you have a lot of injuries too. Like if you have lower body injuries, or hurt ribs or, there's things we can do to train around these injuries. And hand fighting seems to always be one of them, unless it's like, your arms or your hands. A lot of the time we can warm up and we can train hand fighting even when we're injured. And it's often overlooked. You got to develop a strong 2-on-1 game. In the last episode, John Calistine talked a lot about Eddie Cummings. And obviously we're all on Eddie Cummings D. We all love him and what he's done for jiu-jitsu. We all want him to come back. Apparently he's working a vineyard right now, which is kind of wild. But one of the things that he really brought to my attention and to my coach Rob's attention was his ability to get 2-on-1s from the guard. And I remember back then when I was a brown belt, like, what would that be? Like 8 years ago, something like that. Like no one was doing 2-on-1s from the guard, from what I can recall. He was doing 2-on-1s and he would have these sticky 2-on-1s and just use them to get into ashigurami and then leg lock everybody. And so develop a good 2-on-1 game from all positions, standing, guard, whatever. We can even hand fight when we're passing the guard. For those of you who want to improve your guard passing in no-gi, start covering your partner's hands and pinning them to their chest. Start grabbing their hands and pin their hands to the floor, right? When you control your partner's hands, they can't frame. They have issues off balancing you. And all you're going to do is sort of neutralize their defensive frames so that you can get closer and closer to chest. And hand fight as much as you can from as many different places as you can, as often as you can. Hand fighting is probably the most underappreciated skill in jiu-jitsu. It's literally like low-hanging fruit. Doesn't cost you a lot of energy. You can hand fight a lot and not tax your body very much. And you're going to hand fight in literally every single position in jiu-jitsu. And the hand fighting in the gi is not the same. Like hand fighting in the gi, we're grabbing the cloth. So it's a completely different style of hand fighting. That's more, it's not so dissimilar to like judo hand fighting, whereas no-gi is going to be a lot more like wrestling hand fighting. Plus, a lot of the wrestling hand fightings and tie-ups that we use from a standing position traditionally are going to translate over to guard versus standing player. So, hand fight as much as you can. Especially, if you got kids and beginners, get them to hand fight. Get them used to hand fighting, looking for 2-on-1s, getting behind the elbows, etc. Okay. Number one tip. Here we are. Number one tip to optimize your no-gi game: wrestle every day. Try to wrestle as much as you can. I came from a background where traditionally I was I always did a little bit of wrestling, but it's no secret, I like to pull guard. I feel confident in my guard, but lately I've been really just trying to wrestle as much as I can. Like, at least a couple of rounds a night I will try to wrestle, because I want to put myself in those positions. I want to build confidence in the standing position, and it takes time to do that, right? If you're never in the standing position and then someone's like, okay, now you have to wrestle, like there's an ADCC match and you have to wrestle, like you are going to hate that experience. Make sure you're wrestling a little bit every day. And I'm not saying you need to go in there and shoot for doubles and singles and, get on two knees and like shoot for the lower body. Like, I'm not recommending that necessarily. I think those are higher risk and they're certainly needed to be competent in wrestling, but like, man, we can just spam collar ties. We can just spam collar ties and upper body ties and just be confident there and funnel towards front headlocks and like rear body locks. You don't have to shoot on legs. That being said, though, I would say, if you want to get good at wrestling for real, like in a competitive situation, you got to have a good single leg. And the reason why I think single leg is so important is because it's easy to get to and it leads to so many other attacks. Like if I shoot on your legs and you sprawl on me, I can let go of a double leg and just stand up with a single leg. I can use a single leg to get to a rear body lock. I can use a single leg to get to an underhook. Therefore, the single leg can transfer from the underhook to the front headlock. I can go from an underhook to a single leg. Single leg is just so diverse in its application and it's so applicable. So it chains together with so many other positions. So I think single leg is one of the most useful lower body controls that we can use. Plus, it's locked hands around the leg, meaning we have a good degree of control, and you don't even need to shoot to get it. It's like a low risk style to get it. I recommend, if you're going to be thinking about adopting a wrestling style for jiu-jitsu, as I said earlier, look at a style that is high reward and low risk. So the more that we're shooting on our knees, the more we're presenting risks of front headlocks and sprawls. So upper body tie-ups, like basically mimic Gordon. You don't usually see Gordon shooting for the legs too often. You see him spamming collar ties and using underhooks to go throw-bys, which leads to rear body locks, which I think is like a much safer and effective way to take someone down than just, looking for single leg finishes. Single leg finishes are hard to do, but it's easy on good people, but it's easy to pick up a single leg. Double leg is easier to finish, but excuse me, double leg is easier to finish, but more difficult to get to. And so that's where I really see the application of single legs, or chaining things together. And really like scrimmage wrestle with your partners. So like put yourself in situations where there's scrambles happening and try and sit in the pocket of the scramble as much as you can. This is something that Marcelo used to do, is he would, he would try to, when he was rolling and getting ready for competitions, he wanted to maximize the amount of time that he was scrambling with people. And so he wouldn't necessarily just like hold people down all the time. He would create scrambles and force his partner to scramble with him. So he's using movement and, technique and chaining things together to dominate his opponent, rather than immobilizing them with pins. So another way that we can do this is we can wrestle. We can sort of play wrestle. Like some people, the wrestlers that I know, they talk about scrimmaging as just play wrestling, which is where we're basically just like scrambling, and it's almost like flow rolling. Like I shoot on you, you sprawl, you go behind, I escape, I reshoot, you escape, you reshoot. And we're just kind of like, we're not looking for the perfect opportunity necessarily. We're just flowing and trying to make movement happen. And we're not really immobilizing each other in any way. We're just like catching and releasing and working with each other and looking for opportunities as they come. I think this is a great way to train wrestling. And I also think it's a great way to train it in a more competitive situation where, one person takes the other person down and then boom, it's a live roll from there. Let's initiate the scrimmage. Let's try and score, get a submission off of this scrimmage. Many different games that we can build off of that. Plus wrestling builds like grit, mental toughness. It builds strength, and it's crucial for modern no-gi, and it builds confidence, not just on the standing position too, but like if you know that you can scramble and scrimmage and move around and you can get put into bad positions and wrestle out, like you're going to be more confident when you go into attacks. So wrestle every day as much as you can. I'm not a fantastic wrestler, but that's something that I'm constantly working on, is like, how am I going to get more and more competent in wrestling? How am I going to get more confident just being in the standing position? So when I go to ADCC and I go against these, like, you know, wrestlers by trade, that I feel comfortable implementing my game. All right, guys. So those are my 11 tips for optimizing your no-gi. And they are: tip 11, train with people who prioritize no-gi. 10, learn to distribute your body weight on your partner. 9, seek the inside position. 8, develop a kipping escape. 7, get good at headlocks. 6, train within the ADCC rule set. 5, understand sweeps are not sweeps. They are all wrestle-ups. 4, look to lock your hands around your opponent whenever possible. 3, get leg locked a lot. 2, hand fight as often as possible from all positions. And number 1, wrestle every day. Guys, that's all I have for you today. If you like the content I'm giving you, please like, share, subscribe, leave comments below, check the links on the bottom, check out the products that I have in the show notes. Love you guys. Gonna see you next week. See you later. Bye-bye.